Arizona was one of the most surprising teams in the country last year. The Wildcats started off just 3-3, but then got hot, winning 7 straight games to end the year, including their bowl win over Oklahoma to finish at 10-3. But their momentum took a bit of a hit when their coach Jedd Fisch, surprisingly, left Arizona for the Washington job. But rest assured, despite dealing with a new coach, despite moving to a new conference, the Wildcats are still a Big 12 title contender and will still have a very successful year in 2024. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. Kicking off our Big 12 college football predictions with the Arizona Wildcats. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our expert picks, home of our exclusive newsletters. Everything there, guys, is for you to indulge in and take advantage of for this season. We want you to go check it out. We want you to sign up for those things, to become a member of our GE Nation. The earlier you do it, the better, because we're putting out a lot of exclusive content right now, even more so coming once the season begins, and you will want to win big with us this season. We can promise you that. But we take a look at Arizona. The question is, will they win big in 2024? Again, I think people would be a little bit higher on the Wildcats, despite the conference change, if Jedd Fisch had stuck around. Losing your head coach in a surprising move like that, obviously hurt momentum a little bit. And then hiring a guy like Brent Brennan from San Jose State, who was just 34-48 in his 7 years with the Spartans, really, I don't think excited the fan base all that much. But what did excite them was the fact that Arizona was able to hold on to some of their biggest playmakers. When a coach leaves, a lot of guys enter the transfer portal, sometimes follow their coaches. That did not happen too much for Arizona. They kept one of the best duos in all of college football this year. 8 starters back on offense. The 2 biggest, Noah Fifita, who threw for over 2,800 yards and 25 touchdowns at quarterback last year, and Tataroa McMillan, who had over 1,400 reception yards and 10 touchdowns. That quarterback-wide receiver duo will not just be one of the best in the Big 12, but it will be one of the best in the entire country. They do lose their top 3 rushers. That part hurts. But they went out and had a pretty big guy of their own. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had over 1,100 rushing yards last year at New Mexico. That's a huge pickup for the Wildcats. They returned 4 offensive linemen with it. They averaged over 448 yards per game. They averaged over 300 passing yards per game last year. I think they can meet those numbers again. And I think new offensive coordinator Dino Babers, the former head coach at Syracuse, is going to do very well with the talent that he now has in Tucson. The defense, 7 starters are back, including 5 of their top 6 tacklers, including Jacob Manu, the leading tackler last year with 116 tackles and 6.5 sacks at linebacker. Dalton Johnson back in the secondary along with Gunnar Maldonado. This secondary is going to be pretty solid. The only minor concern for Arizona's defense is probably up front on the defensive line. I think they're going to have a lot of rotation there, but the linebacking core, the secondary, very, very solid, and that's going to be huge playing some of these good offenses in the Big 12. Take a look at the Wildcat schedule. Let's get into it. Look, great opportunity to work out any kinks they've got with the new schemes and the new coaches, right? They're going to cruise past New Mexico. They're going to cruise past Northern Arizona. They're going to start 2-0. They're going to knock the rust off. They're going to figure things out, and then they enter a big game at Kansas State, which is not a conference game. Despite Kansas State being a member of the Big 12, and Arizona now a member as well, this is not a conference game. So conference play will begin for the Wildcats on September 28th when they go to Utah. But unfortunate that 2 of their first big games are both on the road against arguably the 2 best teams in the Big 12 this year. We'll start with Kansas State. I love this Wildcats team. I love Avery Johnson. I love DJ Giddens. This is going to be a dangerous rushing team for the Wildcats. Kansas State and Arizona, both Wildcats. But dangerous rushing team for the Wildcats defense for Arizona to handle. I'm not quite sure the defensive line is going to be prepared for it. And Kansas State in Manhattan, that's a very difficult place to play. They defend home turf very well under Chris Kleiman. And with 8 starters back on defense, can this Arizona offense generate enough to win on the road? I don't think they will. Early season loss for the Wildcats on the road as they're still trying to adapt to these new schemes and these new coaches. They lose that game 2-1. Coming out of the bye week, they go on the road to Utah. So again, how unfortunate. Their first conference game in Big 12 play is a former Pac-12 opponent, but they've got to play Utah now in Salt Lake City. And before I hear it, you're going to say, I know, but Arizona, they crushed Utah last year. They won 42-18. So there's no way they lose this year, right? Wrong. They're going to lose to the Utes this year. Why? Because it is a completely different Utah team. First off, Salt Lake City is one of the most difficult places to play in the entire country. The Utes are 90-26 at home under Kyle Whittingham. It is so hard to win there. Number two, last year, Utah didn't have a quarterback. They had no quarterback whatsoever, and they still put up 438 yards of offense against this Arizona defense. So now Arizona traveling to Salt Lake City with Cam Rising back for the Utes, with one of their top targets and Brant Keithy back, with a loaded defense once again. It's just not in the cards. It's a big conference game for both of these teams in their first year in this conference, but Utah gets the last laugh and gets their revenge over the Wildcats after last year's beatdown. They win that game, and Arizona 2-2, almost matching last year's loss total in the month of September. Not the most ideal start, but things lighten up a little bit. Again, unfortunate that they played two of the best teams in the conference in essentially back-to-back games. But then look at that. Texas Tech, BYU, Colorado, West Virginia. Only one road game in that four-game stretch. And I think Arizona wins every single one of them. They will beat Texas Tech at home. A fun offensive game if you love offense. Texas Tech's going to have a great offense. Arizona's going to have a great offense. But ultimately, Arizona owns, to me, a major edge defensively. So when you've got the defensive edge in a shootout, that's massive. When you've got home field advantage to go along with that, that's massive. They get their first Big 12 conference victory at home against the Red Raiders. They then go back into Utah to take on BYU, a team that went 5-7 last year in their first year in the conference, but has a lot of question marks. Their offense is struggling. It's struggling quite a bit. Struggled bad last year, averaging just 23.1 points per game and only 310 yards per game. Their defense was supposed to be better last year. It wasn't. So will the offense have enough to hang with Arizona's offense? Will the defense have enough to slow down Arizona's offense? The answer to that question is no to both. The Wildcats go on the road. Not an easy place to play in Provo, but they still get the win. Back-to-back wins there. I think they cruise past Colorado. Everybody's hyping up Colorado once again. I think the Buffaloes will be much improved. I think they could flirt with a bowl game once again. But if the Colorado Buffaloes have not fixed their defense, they don't stand a chance against Arizona. And I know last year's game was close. I know last year Arizona barely escaped 34-31 back in Pac-12 play when both were members of the Pac-12. But this year's a little bit different. Buffaloes have to come down to Tucson. I still don't have faith in their defense that allowed over 34 points per game and over 450 yards per game to slow down this offense, one that is going to be dangerous through the air once again, and again, dangerous on the ground despite losing some of their top rushers. Arizona beats Colorado. It's not nearly as close as it was last year, and then they beat West Virginia also at home. Again, huge to have the Mountaineers at home this year. The Mountaineers are going to be very, very solid, but if I'm Arizona, stop the run. That's all you got to do in this game. West Virginia is a very good rushing team. They have three guys coming back that had over 700 rushing yards last year. And I'm not saying Garrett Green can't win a game through the air. It's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm also saying that if he wants to, he's going to have to go up against Arizona's secondary that's pretty dang good. So Arizona's defense, once again, going to play a major role here. If they bottle up the run, I don't think West Virginia can win the game solely through the air. They beat the Mountaineers, who some are picking as a Big 12 title contender and a Big 12 title member maybe this year. Wouldn't go that far yet, although we'll predict the Mountaineers soon enough. They win 4 straight games, so from 2-2 to 6-2 and only one conference loss. So as they enter the month of November, they are in the thick of the Big 12 title race, which is where I believe many expect the Wildcats to be. They go on the road to UCF, a trap game if I've ever seen one. And we saw that last year, right? I mean, UCF was much better than their record showed. The Knights went 6-7, but I had a handful of one-possession losses against quality teams. Probably should have been a 8-9 win team when it was all said and done. They've got a great offense, and KJ Jefferson transferring in from Arkansas. RJ Harvey is back. And an interesting game for Arizona as the Wildcats are playing their first game in the Eastern time zone since 2010. And their first true road game, non-bowl related, in Florida since 1992. This, to me, is a high-scoring game between the Knights and the Wildcats, but I'm going to go with Gus Malzahn's UCF squad at the Bounce House, which I know has a new name, but we're not giving it that. They are going to win this game in Orlando. Consistency with the roster, consistency at the head coaching position, home field advantage, and an offense that can match Arizona step for step. That's the difference maker in this one. We saw UCF pull off a handful of upsets last year. We saw them pull off a big upset over Oklahoma State last year, riding high off some big victories, maybe flirting with a playoff berth. UCF crushed those in Orlando. I'm not necessarily saying the situation is the exact same, but UCF pulls off another big upset on their home turf. Arizona takes their third loss of the year. Coming out of the bye week, they get a nice little break. Houston's under a major rebuild. Weren't all that great last year. Now have a new coach in Willie Fritz coming over from Tulane. They're a work in progress. It's going to take some time to rebuild this Cougar squad. And Arizona at home off that week of rest should cruise past Fritz's squad. Then 2 games left. If they win both, there's a very good chance they can make the Big 12 championship game. Right at this point, they've only got 2 conference losses. It's a wide open conference this year. So it depends on what Utah does, depends on what Kansas State does, depends on what Oklahoma State does, all those teams like that. But it also could depend on what TCU does. The Horned Frogs weren't all that great last year. 1 year after being the national runner-up, they failed to make the postseason. This year, though, they should get back to it. They've got 9 starters coming back on defense. A lot better defense than you realize. Josh Hoover, a quarterback, a lot better than people realize. This TCU offense last year, despite only winning 5 games, averaged over 300 passing yards per game. And now they're having to go on the road to a TCU environment that, again, is not an easy place to play in at all. This TCU offense will threaten Arizona's defense. This TCU offense can hang with Arizona's offense, no doubt about it. And again, similar to UCF maybe similar to Utah, but more so the UCF game. I think it's back and forth. But give me the Horned Frogs to pull off this win. Arizona takes their 4th loss of the year, but beats Arizona State to close out the season. 98th meeting of the Territorial Cup. They won 59-23 last year. I expect a relatively similar result this year as the Sun Devils are still in a major rebuilding process under Kenny Dillingham. Arizona finishes at 8-4, 6-3 in conference play, which might not be good enough to make the conference championship game. Again, it just depends on what all the other members do. More than likely, probably not going to be good enough, but 8-4 in their first year under Brent Brennan. Some view that as a disappointment. I don't. Schedule's a little bit tougher than it was last year. No doubt about it. The momentum was halted when their head coach that got them to 10 wins last year bolted for Washington. So 8-4 in their first year with a new coach, in their first year in a new conference, first year with new schemes. I would consider that a pretty successful season. An opportunity to win 9 games 1 year after winning 10 games. A very successful season in Tucson. So maybe not what Arizona fans are hoping for, but regardless, another winning season, another solid bowl berth, and a really good foundation that has been set under Brent Brennan. And next year, assuming they can keep a lot of this talent, could be the year the Wildcats continue to take off, continue this upward trajectory, and maybe could be the year they break through to a conference championship game. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Kicking off our Big 12 football predictions. Plenty more coming your way. Make sure to stay tuned. All the more reason to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our expert picks, home to our exclusive newsletters, everything there for you to take advantage of and become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.